Officer Marcus Rodriguez had been patrolling the quiet streets of Millbrook for over 15 years. The small town nestled between rolling hills rarely saw serious crime, which made his job both peaceful and predictable. On this particular Tuesday evening in October, Marcus was finishing his shift when dispatch crackled through his radio with reports of suspicious activity near the old warehouse district. The sun was setting as Marcus drove toward the industrial area, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. He had investigated similar calls before, usually finding nothing more than teenagers looking for a place to hang out or homeless individuals seeking shelter. The warehouse had been abandoned for nearly a decade, and while the property owner occasionally complained about trespassers, it was rarely anything serious. As Marcus pulled up to the chain-link fence surrounding the property, he noticed a black sedan parked in the shadows near the building's loading dock. The car's windows were tinted, making it impossible to see inside. Something felt different about this call, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what was bothering him. His instincts, honed by years of police work, were telling him to proceed with caution. Marcus radioed his location to dispatch and stepped out of his patrol car. The evening air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke from neighborhood fireplaces. He approached the fence slowly, his hand resting casually on his service weapon. The black sedan's engine was still running, which struck him as odd for someone who was supposedly just exploring an abandoned building. As he got closer to the fence, Marcus noticed movement near the warehouse entrance. Two figures emerged from the shadows, and even from a distance he could tell they were watching him. The hair on the back of his neck stood up as he realized this wasn't going to be a routine call. These individuals had been waiting for him, and that could only mean one thing. This was a setup. Marcus quickly keyed his radio to request backup, but before he could speak he felt a sharp sting in his neck. His hand flew to the spot and his fingers found a small dart protruding from his skin. The world around him began to blur as whatever substance had been injected into his system took effect. His legs felt heavy and his vision started to tunnel. Fighting against the effects of the drug, Marcus stumbled backward toward his patrol car. He managed to grab his radio, but his speech was already slurred when he tried to call for help. The figures from the warehouse were approaching now, moving with purpose and confidence. They knew exactly what they were doing, and Marcus realized with growing horror that he had walked directly into their trap. The last thing Marcus remembered before losing consciousness was the sound of car doors slamming and the sensation of being dragged across the gravel parking lot. His service weapon was removed from his holster, and his radio was switched off. As darkness claimed him, Marcus wondered if anyone would realize he was missing before it was too late. When Marcus didn't check in at the end of his shift, the dispatcher tried to raise him on the radio several times. His patrol car was eventually found at the warehouse, but there was no sign of the officer himself. The investigation would soon reveal that Marcus Rodriguez had become the victim of a carefully planned attack, one that would test the limits of human compassion and the unexpected heroism that can emerge from the most unlikely sources. The small town of Millbrook was about to discover that sometimes salvation comes from the most innocent among us, and that the bond between humans and animals can transcend even the darkest circumstances. What happened next would challenge everything the community thought they knew about courage, loyalty, and the power of never giving up hope. 8-year-old twins Emma and Lily Chen were walking their golden retriever, Buddy, through Riverside Park when they heard the muffled groaning sounds coming from the storm drain beneath the old stone bridge. The sisters had taken this route countless times before on their evening walks, but they had never heard anything like this. Buddy's ears perked up immediately, and he began pulling toward the source of the sound with unusual urgency. Emma, the more cautious of the twins, wanted to keep walking and tell their parents about the strange noise when they got home, but Lily, who had always been the adventurous one, insisted they investigate. Buddy was now whining and pawing at the metal grating that covered the storm drain entrance, his behavior becoming increasingly agitated as the sounds from below continued. The storm drain system in Millbrook was extensive, built decades ago to handle the seasonal flooding that occurred when the nearby river overflowed its banks. Most of the tunnels were large enough for an adult to crawl through, though they were dark, damp, and definitely not a place where children were supposed to venture. The entrance where the girls stood was partially hidden by overgrown bushes and had been forgotten by most of the town's residents. As the twins crouched down beside the grating, They could make out what sounded like someone trying to speak, though the words were unclear and weak. Buddy was now barking softly as if trying to respond to whoever was trapped below. The golden retriever had always been protective of the girls, but his behavior suggested he sensed someone was in serious trouble. Lily pulled out her small flashlight, a birthday gift from their grandmother that she always carried in her backpack. When she shined the beam through the grating, both girls gasped at what they saw. A man in what appeared to be a police uniform was lying on his side in the shallow water at the bottom of the drain. His face was pale and he seemed to be struggling to stay conscious. Emma immediately wanted to run home and get their parents, but the police officer weakly raised his hand when he heard their voices. He was trying to tell them something, though his speech was severely slurred. The girls could make out fragments of words that sounded like help and poison, but most of what he was saying was unintelligible. Buddy had stopped barking and was now whimpering as he pressed his nose against the metal grating. The dog seemed to understand that the person below needed immediate assistance, and his distress was evident to both girls. Emma and Lily had been taught to call 911 in emergencies, but they had left their mother's old cell phone at home that evening. The nearest house was at least a 10-minute run away, and both girls were afraid that if they left to get help, the police officer might not survive that long. He appeared to be getting weaker, and the water level in the storm drain seemed to be rising slightly as evening dew and condensation began to collect in the tunnels. Lily made a decision that would change everything. She told Emma to stay with Buddy and keep talking to the police officer to help him stay awake, while she ran as fast as she could to the emergency call box that was located near the park's main entrance. The old call box was a relic from an earlier era, but it was still functional and connected directly to the police station. As Lily sprinted across the park, Emma found herself alone with Buddy and the trapped officer. She was scared, but she knew she had to be brave. She began talking to the man through the grating, telling him her name and assuring him that help was coming. Even though she couldn't understand his responses, she could see that her voice seemed to comfort him and help him focus on staying conscious. Buddy remained pressed against the grating, occasionally letting out soft whines that seemed to encourage the officer below. The dog's loyalty and determination impressed Emma, and she realized that Buddy understood the gravity of the situation better than most adults might have. Together, the young girl and the golden retriever kept a desperate vigil, not knowing that their actions had just begun what would become an extraordinary rescue mission. The police officer, Marcus Rodriguez, was fighting for his life against whatever poison had been injected into his system, but he was no longer alone in his struggle. When Lily reached the emergency call box, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely press the red button. The box crackled to life and she heard the voice of police dispatcher Sarah Mitchell on the other end. Lily's words came out in a rush as she tried to explain what they had found, but Sarah had difficulty understanding the excited 8-year-old at first. "Slow down, sweetheart," Sarah said gently. "Tell me your name and where you are." Lily took a deep breath and explained that she and her sister had found a police officer trapped in the storm drain under the bridge in Riverside Park. She mentioned that the man seemed very sick and that their dog was acting strange, as if he knew something terrible was happening. Sarah's blood ran cold when she realized that this might be connected to the missing Officer Rodriguez. She immediately dispatched emergency medical services and the fire department rescue team to the park, while also alerting the on-duty officers about the potential location of their missing colleague. The dispatcher stayed on the line with Lily, walking her back toward where Emma and Buddy were waiting. Meanwhile, Emma had been talking continuously to the trapped officer, telling him stories about school, her family, and their dog Buddy. She noticed that whenever she stopped talking, the man seemed to become less responsive, so she kept up a steady stream of chatter, even though she was running out of things to say. Buddy had positioned himself so that his snout was as close to the grating as possible, occasionally whimpering in response to sounds from below. Officer Rodriguez was experiencing the effects of what would later be identified as a powerful neurotoxin, something that was slowly shutting down his nervous system. His kidnappers had intended for him to die slowly and painfully in the storm drain, where his body might not be found for weeks or months. They had not counted on two determined little girls and their loyal dog discovering him so quickly. When the first responders arrived at the park, they were amazed to find Emma still talking to the trapped officer, while Buddy maintained his vigil by the grating. Fire Captain James Walsh had been with the department for over 20 years, but he had never seen such dedication from civilians so young. The girl's actions had quite possibly saved Officer Rodriguez's life by keeping him conscious and alert. The rescue presented immediate challenges. The storm drain entrance was too narrow for adult firefighters wearing full gear, and the tunnel system was partially flooded. Captain Walsh realized they would need specialized equipment and possibly a different entry point to reach the trapped officer safely. Time was critical, as the medical team could see that Rodriguez was deteriorating rapidly. Dr. Rebecca Chen, who had responded with the ambulance crew, assessed the situation and determined that they needed to get medical treatment to the officer immediately, even before they could extract him from the drain. This meant someone would have to enter the tunnel system with medical supplies, but the space was too confined for adult emergency workers. Emma and Lily's father, David Chen, arrived at the scene after being contacted by the police. When he saw his daughter's involvement in the rescue effort, his first instinct was to take them home immediately. However, Captain Walsh explained that the girls had been instrumental in keeping the officer alive and conscious, and their continued presence might be crucial to the rescue effort. Buddy seemed to understand that something important was happening. The golden retriever had not moved from his position by the grating, and he appeared to be listening intently to every sound coming from below. When one of the firefighters attempted to move him away from the entrance, Buddy refused to budge and whined pitifully until he was allowed to return to his post. The emergency team realized they were facing a race against time. Officer Rodriguez's vital signs were weakening, and the neurotoxin in his system was causing progressive paralysis. Traditional rescue methods were not going to work in this situation, and they needed to think creatively if they were going to save his life. It was then that Emma made a suggestion that initially seemed impossible, but would ultimately prove to be the key to the entire rescue operation. She pointed out that Buddy was small enough to fit through the storm drain entrance, and that the dog had already shown an unusual connection to the trapped officer. What she proposed next would test the limits of human-animal communication and demonstrate the incredible intelligence and loyalty of their beloved pet. The rescue was about to take a turn that no one could have predicted. Emma's suggestion seemed impossible at first. She proposed that Buddy could carry medical supplies to Officer Rodriguez through the storm drain tunnel. Dr. Chen initially dismissed the idea as too dangerous and impractical, but as the officer's condition continued to deteriorate, the medical team realized they were running out of conventional options. Captain Walsh examined the storm drain entrance more carefully and discovered that while it was too narrow for human rescuers, a medium-sized dog could potentially navigate the tunnel system. The main concern was whether Buddy could be trained quickly enough to understand what was needed and whether he would be able to find his way back out of the dark, confusing tunnel network. Lily remembered that Buddy had been trained as a therapy dog before the family adopted him. His previous owner had worked with disabled children, and Buddy had learned to follow complex commands and carry items carefully in his mouth. This training might be exactly what they needed for such an unusual rescue mission. Dr. Chen prepared a waterproof medical kit containing antidote medications, IV fluids, and emergency supplies. The kit was designed to be lightweight enough for Buddy to carry, while being comprehensive enough to potentially save Officer Rodriguez's life. The biggest challenge would be getting the dog to understand that he needed to deliver the supplies to the person in the tunnel, and then return to the surface. Emma and Lily worked together to prepare Buddy for his mission. They attached the medical kit to a special harness that distributed the weight evenly across the dog's back and chest. The girls practiced commands with Buddy, using treats and encouragement to reinforce the behaviors they needed him to demonstrate in the tunnel. The twins had always had a special connection with their dog, but what happened next surprised even them. When they showed Buddy the medical kit and pointed toward the storm drain entrance, the golden retriever seemed to understand instinctively what was being asked of him. His tail wagged with determination, and he approached the grating with confidence rather than fear. Fire Captain Walsh carefully removed the metal grating, creating an opening just large enough for Buddy to squeeze through. The tunnel beyond was dark and filled with several inches of cold water, but the dog showed no hesitation. Emma gave him one final command. "Go help, Buddy. Find the policeman and come back to us. With a soft bark of acknowledgement, Buddy disappeared into the tunnel system. The rescue team waited anxiously as they listened to the sound of splashing water and occasional whimpering echoing through the drain. Emma and Lily called out encouragement to their dog, their voices carrying through the tunnels and helping Buddy navigate toward Officer Rodriguez's location. The journey through the storm drain was treacherous for the golden retriever. The tunnels were pitch black, forcing Buddy to rely on his sense of smell and hearing to find his way. The water was cold and sometimes deeper than expected, requiring him to swim short distances. Sharp debris and slippery surfaces made every step dangerous, but Buddy pressed forward with unwavering determination. Officer Rodriguez heard Buddy approaching before he saw him. The sound of paws splashing through water was followed by soft whimpering, and then a warm, wet nose touched his face in the darkness. Despite his weakened condition, Marcus managed to smile as he realized that help had arrived in the most unexpected form possible. Buddy carefully positioned himself next to the officer and allowed Marcus to remove the medical kit from his harness. Even in his poisoned state, Rodriguez understood what the dog had accomplished and managed to whisper words of gratitude and encouragement. The antidote medication in the kit would need to be administered quickly if it was going to be effective. Working mostly by touch in the darkness, Officer Rodriguez managed to inject himself with the antidote and begin IV fluid replacement. Buddy remained beside him throughout the process, providing warmth and comfort while Marcus fought against the effects of the neurotoxin. The dog seemed to understand that his job was not finished and that he needed to stay with the officer until help could arrive. Above ground, the rescue team waited anxiously for any sign that Buddy had successfully completed his mission. The twins called into the tunnel repeatedly, hoping to hear their dog's response. When Buddy finally barked from deep within the storm drain system, both girls burst into tears of relief and pride. The golden retriever had accomplished what seemed impossible, but the rescue was far from over. Now the emergency team needed to figure out how to extract both Buddy and Officer Rodriguez from the dangerous tunnel system before the antidote's effects wore off or the water level rose any higher. The antidote was working, but Officer Rodriguez remained weak and disoriented. Buddy had positioned himself against the officer's body, providing crucial warmth in the cold, damp tunnel. The dog's presence was not only physically comforting, but also psychologically vital, as Marcus drew strength from the animal's unwavering loyalty and determination. Captain Walsh and his team realized they needed to create a larger access point to extract both the officer and the dog safely. Using specialized equipment, they began carefully enlarging one of the storm drain openings while being cautious not to destabilize the tunnel system or cause a collapse that could trap their victims even more. Securely, Emma and Lily had refused to leave the rescue site, despite their father's attempts to take them home. The girls insisted that Buddy needed to hear their voices to know he wasn't alone in the dark tunnels. They took turns calling out encouragement and commands, maintaining communication with their heroic pet throughout the ordeal. As the rescue team worked to expand the tunnel entrance, they discovered that the storm drain system was more complex than originally thought. Multiple passages connected to form an underground maze, and without Buddy's assistance, they might never have located Officer Rodriguez in time. The dog had navigated the confusing network using instincts and training that amazed the professional rescuers. Dr. Chen monitored Officer Rodriguez's vital signs remotely by having him respond to questions shouted through the tunnel system. The antidote was counteracting the neurotoxin, but the officer needed immediate medical attention at a hospital facility. Every minute that passed increased the risk of permanent damage from the poison that had been administered by his attackers. Buddy proved to be more than just a delivery system for medical supplies. The golden retriever seemed to understand that Officer Rodriguez needed physical support and positioned himself so the weakened man could lean against him for stability. When Marcus began to lose consciousness again, Buddy would gently nudge him awake, somehow knowing that staying alert was crucial for survival. The rescue team made a breakthrough when they successfully widened the main tunnel entrance enough for a small rescuer to enter. Firefighter Maria Santos, the smallest member of the crew, volunteered to crawl through the tunnel system wearing a harness attached to a safety rope. Her mission was to reach Officer Rodriguez and Buddy, then help coordinate their extraction. When Santos finally reached the trapped pair, she was amazed by what she found. Buddy had not only delivered the medical supplies but had also helped Officer Rodriguez apply additional first aid, using items from his own utility belt. The dog had somehow understood that keeping the officer warm and alert was essential, and he had maintained his vigil without wavering. Working in the cramped, dark tunnel, Santos helped Officer Rodriguez prepare for extraction while Buddy watched attentively. The dog seemed to understand that his part in the rescue was nearly complete, but he refused to leave the officer's side until he was certain that human help had arrived. His loyalty and intelligence impressed the experienced firefighter, who had never seen such dedication from an animal in an emergency situation. The extraction process required careful coordination between the rescue team above ground and Santos in the tunnel. Officer Rodriguez was still weak from the poison, making it difficult for him to assist in his own rescue. Buddy continued to help by staying close to Marcus and providing stability as they prepared to move through the narrow passages toward safety. Emma and Lily waited anxiously as the rescue team worked to bring both Buddy and Officer Rodriguez to the surface. The girls had maintained communication with their dog throughout the ordeal, and they could hear in his barks that he was tired but determined to complete his mission. Their voices calling through the tunnel had served as a beacon, helping Buddy navigate the complex underground system. As the extraction began, everyone involved in the rescue understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary. The combination of human determination, animal intelligence, and childhood innocence had created a rescue operation unlike anything in the department's history. Officer Rodriguez owed his life to the quick thinking of two young girls and the heroic actions of their remarkable dog. The most dangerous part of the rescue was still ahead, as they attempted to bring both victims through the narrow, unstable tunnel system to safety. One wrong move could trigger a collapse that would trap everyone involved in the underground maze. The extraction process began with firefighter Santos carefully guiding Officer Rodriguez through the narrow tunnel passages, while Buddy followed close behind. The golden retriever seemed to understand that his human needed support, occasionally pressing against Marcus when he stumbled or appeared to lose his bearings in the darkness. Moving through the storm drain system proved more challenging than anticipated. The tunnels were slippery with moss and debris, and the water level had risen slightly due to evening condensation. Officer Rodriguez, still affected by the neurotoxin, had difficulty coordinating his movements and required constant assistance from Santos to navigate the confined spaces. Buddy demonstrated remarkable problem-solving abilities during the extraction. When they encountered a section where the tunnel narrowed significantly, the dog went ahead to scout the passage and then returned to guide Santos and Officer Rodriguez through the safest route. His actions suggested an intelligence and awareness that amazed the rescue team, monitoring the operation from above. Emma and Lily continued their vigil at the tunnel entrance, calling out instructions and encouragement to Buddy. The twins had developed a special communication system with their dog over the years, using specific words and tones that Buddy understood clearly. Their voices served as a lifeline, helping the golden retriever maintain his focus and determination despite the challenging conditions underground. The rescue took an unexpected turn when Officer Rodriguez began experiencing renewed symptoms from the poison in his system. The antidote had provided temporary relief, but the neurotoxin was stronger than initially assessed. Santos radioed for immediate medical support, and Dr. Chen prepared additional medications that could be administered once they reached the surface. Buddy seemed to sense the urgency of the situation and increased his efforts to help Officer Rodriguez maintain consciousness. The dog positioned himself so that Marcus could lean on him for support while moving through the tunnel, essentially becoming a living crutch for the weakened police officer. This partnership between human and animal was crucial to the success of the extraction operation. As they approached the enlarged tunnel entrance, the rescue team above ground prepared for immediate medical intervention. An ambulance was standing by, and Dr. Chen had assembled a complete medical kit to address Officer Rodriguez's poisoning symptoms. The coordination between emergency services had been seamless, with each team member understanding their role in the complex operation. The first glimpse of daylight through the tunnel entrance provided hope for everyone involved in the rescue. Officer Rodriguez managed a weak smile when he saw the opening ahead, and Buddy's tail began wagging as he recognized the familiar voices of Emma and Lily calling from above. The end of their underground ordeal was finally in sight. Santos emerged from the tunnel first, followed by Officer Rodriguez, who was assisted by rope systems operated by the rescue team. Buddy came last, but the golden retriever refused to leave the tunnel until he was absolutely certain that Officer Rodriguez was safely above ground. His loyalty and dedication had remained unwavering throughout the entire rescue operation. When Buddy finally emerged from the storm drain, Emma and Lily rushed to embrace their heroic dog. The golden retriever was muddy, wet, and exhausted, but his tail wagged enthusiastically as he reunited with his young owners. The crowd of emergency responders, family members, and curious onlookers who had gathered at the rescue site erupted in cheers and applause. Officer Rodriguez was immediately transferred to the ambulance for transport to the hospital, but he insisted on thanking Buddy and the twins before leaving the scene. Despite his weakened condition, Marcus managed to pat the golden retriever and express his gratitude to Emma and Lily for their quick thinking and brave actions. The emotional moment brought tears to the eyes of hardened emergency responders. Dr. Chen accompanied Officer Rodriguez to the hospital while Buddy received a thorough examination from a veterinarian who had been called to the scene. The dog was tired and slightly dehydrated, but otherwise unharmed by his underground adventure. His successful navigation of the storm drain system and his crucial role in saving Officer Rodriguez's life had made him a local hero. The rescue operation was complete, but the impact of what had happened would resonate throughout the community for years to come. 2 8-year-old girls and their loyal dog had accomplished what seemed impossible, demonstrating that heroism comes in many forms, and that the bond between humans and animals can overcome even the most daunting challenges. Officer Marcus Rodriguez made a full recovery after 3 days in the hospital, where doctors marveled at how the quick administration of antidote medication had prevented permanent damage from the neurotoxin. The investigation into his kidnapping led to the arrest of 3 individuals involved in a drug trafficking operation who had targeted Marcus because of his recent work, disrupting their activities in Millbrook. The story of Buddy's heroic rescue spread far beyond the small town, capturing national attention and inspiring people across the country. Emma and Lily Chen became local celebrities, but they remained humble about their role in saving Officer Rodriguez's life. The twins insisted that Buddy was the real hero of the story, and they were simply glad they had listened to their dog's instincts that evening in the park. Buddy was officially recognized by the Millbrook Police Department as an honorary member of the force, complete with his own badge and uniform. The golden retriever seemed to understand the significance of the ceremony, sitting proudly as Officer Rodriguez, now fully recovered, placed the honorary badge around his neck. The moment was captured by photographers and became one of the most shared images on social media that year. The Chen family was invited to appear on several television shows to tell their story, but they preferred to keep their focus on their local community. Emma and Lily used their newfound fame to promote animal welfare causes and to encourage other children to trust their instincts when they encounter emergency situations. Their message was simple: sometimes the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. Officer Rodriguez returned to duty with a renewed appreciation for his work and a special bond with the Chen family. He visited Emma, Lily, and Buddy regularly, often joining them for walks through Riverside Park where the rescue had taken place. The storm drain entrance had been permanently sealed and marked with a memorial plaque honoring the extraordinary rescue that had occurred there. The rescue operation led to improvements in emergency response protocols throughout the region. Fire departments began training programs that incorporated animal assistance in rescue operations, recognizing that dogs and other animals could access areas that were impossible for human rescuers to reach. Buddy's successful mission became a case study in emergency response training programs. Emma and Lily's quick thinking and brave actions inspired their school to implement a new curriculum focused on emergency preparedness and community service. The twins became peer educators, teaching other children about recognizing emergency situations and knowing how to get help quickly. Their story demonstrated that age was not a barrier to making a significant difference in someone's life. The bond between Buddy and Officer Rodriguez remained strong long after the rescue. The dog seemed to remember their shared experience in the storm drain, and whenever Marcus visited the Chen family, Buddy would stay close to the officer as if protecting him from future harm. Their connection transcended the typical relationship between humans and animals, forged in a moment of life and death crisis. 6 months after the rescue, the town of Millbrook held a special ceremony to honor all the participants in the extraordinary operation. Emma, Lily, and Buddy were presented with the town's highest civilian honor, while the emergency responders who had participated in the rescue were also recognized for their professional excellence and creative problem-solving. Under pressure, the storm drain rescue became a defining moment for the small community of Millbrook, demonstrating that ordinary people could accomplish extraordinary things when they worked together. The story was eventually adapted into a children's book, with proceeds donated to animal rescue organizations and emergency response training programs. Years later, as Emma and Lily grew up and eventually left Millbrook for college and careers, they never forgot the lesson their experience had taught them: that courage, compassion, and quick thinking could overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. Buddy lived a long and happy life, always treated as a hero by everyone who knew his story. The legacy of that October evening continued to inspire new generations of children and adults, proving that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and that sometimes the most unlikely partnerships can achieve the most remarkable results. Officer Rodriguez often told people that he owed his life to 2 brave little girls and 1 extraordinary dog who refused to give up when it mattered most.